Hi, I'm Ines Beltranena and I want to talk to you about vocal technique. So now we're on part 2 of our breath technique. I hope that you've spent some time practicing channeling your air to the right place, okay? Getting it down so that your diaphragm flattens and your rib cage is expanded and so that you can speak comfortably. The telltale sign of proper breath technique is, can I get a full breath and speak naturally, okay? So that's the really big test that you want to go up against, is stand in front of the mirror, get your breath into the right place, and try to speak, okay? You might lose your breath quickly because we haven't practiced holding that air in place yet, but you should feel that the air is drawn down away from your larynx and therefore you can speak very naturally. So now let's talk about keeping our breath. There are a couple cool tricks to get this in place, but I want to talk about what's happening. So now we're going to put what we've learned together with one more little function, okay? When you draw your air in, you can get it to the right place now, okay? You get the expansion of your rib cage, you get the flattening of the diaphragm, your air is in place and your larynx is relaxed. How do we keep this here? How do we control the rise of the diaphragm? How do we control the collapse of the rib cage? The short answer is we practice, we strengthen our muscles. Now, in order to get this air held properly in place, to create the buoyancy and support that we want as singers, we're going to get our lower abdominal muscles involved. We don't want to think of this as squeezing. If you over squeeze, again, you're going to create tension in your body where you don't want it. But what we do want is a nice compaction. So I'm going to show you how to find the right level of compaction. There's a really simple trick and it's kind of cute and fun. So we're going to draw our air in. Put your hands right over this area where your rib cage splits apart. Make sure that you are not crooked in your posture. Now let's draw our air into the right place. And I want you to lean back just slightly and let your body pull you back to center. What you're going to feel when you do that is your abdominal muscles are going to tighten to pull you back to the middle. Now I don't want you to do this. You're going to just throw yourself off and get really, really distracted. This is very slight, okay? We draw our air in and we lean just slightly back and we let our abdominal muscles pull us to center. That's the amount of pressure you want to use to hold your air in place. What you should feel is that you end up with a nice compact abdomen and that your air is pretty solid. One thing you can do, and don't do this very hard, is after you have taken your breath, let's do it again, breath in place, lean back, get those abdominal muscles compact, and give it a little pat. If you can speak and pat this little area, you're on the right track. You've got something good going here. So this is our first little step in delaying, controlling the collapse of our rib cage and our diaphragm. But now let's talk about how we do that with our air, okay? What this means is we have this little storage of air down here, okay? And we need to be able to use very little breath, nice and minimal, to create the tone that we want. But we're not going to start with singing. We're going to start with hissing. And I don't suggest or recommend any particular form of hiss. Some people like to with their tongue and their teeth. Some people like to with their lips. The golden rule is if you're relaxed here in your larynx, then you're good, okay? The whole point of breath technique is to take all of the pressure off of your larynx. Your larynx should be responsible for one thing and one thing only, and that is arriving at the pitch. It's not responsible for supporting the pitch. It's like the finger on a fingerboard. Very, very soft strings. If you're any kind of string player, I want you to imagine this not as something you clamp, right? You just land on the string, okay? And that's what your larynx is responsible for, and that's all it's ever going to be responsible for. So now let's talk about the hiss. Now, proper tone is achieved by a minimal stream of steady breath. One little anecdote that I like to tell people is the old masters using candles and holding them in front of their pupils, and if the candle flickered, you were using too much air. It's a fun story and it gets the point across. Probably if you sing with a candle this close to your mouth, you're going to create some flickering. But a better test is this, and this is kind of gross. Give your fingers a lick. Ah! You shouldn't really feel anything. Proper vocal technique, you don't really need to use that much breath for good volume, okay? So for me, I'm using just about the same amount of air to achieve ah as I am for ah. It's not really about the amount you're releasing, it's about your throat shape and your resonance, which is a whole other video that we'll go through. The idea that I want to concretize in your head right now is that you really don't need to expel your air. What you need is to learn how to use your reservoir of air to create a really steady stream. It's like the bow across a violin or any kind of stringed instrument. If you're unsteady with your bow, you're going to hear this like, it's not going to sound very good. It's going to get louder and quieter and you're not going to have control over it. Steady stream of minimal breath means you have control over the tone of your note. You have control over the pitch of your note. You have control over the relaxation that allows vibrato, which is also a whole other video. So, hissing. Let's practice getting into inspiratory position, right? We're going to check our posture, draw our air in. We're going to lean back a little bit to make sure our abdominal muscles are involved, not overly clamped, but involved, okay? Now that is a big step process that I just wanted to talk you through again. Now I'm going to do it more quickly because I've spoken so much that I've used all my air. Now, it's this simple. Now I'm going to cut myself off because you don't need to listen to me hiss for a minute. But what you should find is that with all of your technique in place, you can get a nice long hiss without your larynx getting tense. If your larynx gets tense, back up. Relax your body, go back to getting your breath into the proper place and your abdomen in place, and try speaking a sentence with your larynx relaxed. You really need to find the place where your larynx is relaxed. These laryngeal muscles, they just want to be so soft. So, when you're hissing, there are a couple things I want you to focus on. At first, I want you to focus on duration. How long can I hold this hiss? Take a clock or a timer into your bathroom, watch your technique in the mirror, and time yourself. Now, I don't want you to be doing this, okay? So let's imagine I've been hissing for a while. Don't push it out at the end. We're trying to maintain relaxation. That's the biggest thing that we're trying to achieve here. So if anything comes at the cost of relaxation, you're going too far to actually benefit yourself. What we really want is, let me get some of the air out so we can get to the end. I still actually could have gone a little farther, but I want to have control over the ending, okay? Now, and I don't want my body to be folding or squeezing. I'm going to talk to you in another video about what to do if you feel like you're running out of air on stage, or if you have such a long phrase that usually at the end you're getting to this place, and we can get a little bit of extra oomph from other muscles in our body. But for this exercise, again, the goal is relaxation, and the goal is learning how to get this muscle comfortable, this muscle, these muscles, comfortable with the slow and steady delayed collapse. So, first thing that we're paying attention to is duration of our hiss. The second thing that we're paying attention to is the sound of our hiss, okay? Does it sound unsteady or even my hiss sounds a little bit, you can hear that pitch changing just a little bit. The more you practice it, the more steady it's going to get. I'm a little bit out of practice, but you get the idea. There's a big difference between what that means is that it's kind of jumping as it delays, right? It's you're losing a little bit too much air in places and then you're getting control again. Don't judge yourself. This is okay. It's a good stepping stone between breathing here and getting to the place where we have a lot of control. But you want to try to delay that collapse in such a way that you get your breath really, really steady, okay? This is the next step. I want you to do this before singing, because once we get singing into the mix, once we talk about phonating on top of all of this, we have a few other things we have to think about. So these are the two parts of breathing. Achieving inspiratory position means we get our air into our body, we bypass this clay bust, and we get down here. We draw our air low so that the rib cage expands and the diaphragm tautens, okay? And then we use our lower abdominal muscles, just a little bit, to hold that air in a nice, compact, and supportive place. You should feel buoyant. You should feel like you can walk like royalty. You're really steady and kind of, it's a regal posture, okay? And then we delay the collapse of our rib cage, and we delay the rise of our diaphragm, consequently. What this creates is a steady stream of very minimal breath, and that right there, that's what you need for proper breath technique. So these are the two things I want you to practice this month, and I want you to practice them separately from singing. When you start getting that hiss down, start speaking with this technique, okay? What you're going to find is that speaking is easier. Talking, public speaking, is one of the most brutal things for the voice to endure if breath technique is not well developed. If your breath technique is in good place, then you can talk for a lot longer and your voice is a lot more supported. And so you're not going to come home with that raw, horrible feeling that you're losing your breath, okay? Or excuse me, you're losing your voice. So when you feel like you've got the hissing going really well, I want you to integrate this into your speaking with people. And I want you to maybe practice reading something out of a book. See how far you can get in the sentence with your proper breath technique versus when you're just speaking the way that you casually speak. The more you practice this, the more that your casual speaking is going to take on this form. And you're going to be really glad about it because you're going to be able to talk for eons without any pain. Okay? So that's this month's vocal technique tips. These are 2 videos on breath, and the reason I'm starting with just breath is because it's that important. No matter where you are at in your career, back up and re-examine this every few months. It's something that I do regularly. This is something you have to maintain to keep it healthy. Okay, I am so excited to be working with you. I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope it was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to write to me. And remember that you, as Patreon members at this tier, get hugely discounted lessons, and you can pay me $15 on Venmo for a 40-minute private lesson with you if that's something that you want to do, okay? My normal rates are $50 an hour, so it's a really good deal. Be well and sing well.